Hello and welcome. This is Stacy Cisneros and this is Stacy's Infinity Podcast. Thanks so much for joining me today. This is the podcast where we talk about how to make the woo things and unconventional things work for you. So today I'd like to talk about an energy modality that I stumbled upon about a little over 10 years ago, and it's called infinity healing. And at the time, I had a lot of issues with money, and starting out my practice, and it was going slow. And I also was very interested in doing things online, and maybe having a consulting business online or whatever. And I was having a lot of trouble with like self-doubt, motivational issues. And, I had a perspective at that time that, money was very difficult. It was something outside of me. It's something somebody else had and I didn't. It was something that I really couldn't understand it. It was like, I understood that there's like a currency exchange happening. I understood that, how to add and subtract from my, my account. But the concept of why something cost what it did, and why somebody had to exchange it for that much, like all of those concepts were very strange to me. And the other thing, the other perspective I had about money at the time was even kind of one of anger. Like I didn't like the fact that to live a life you have to basically exchange money, whether it's for to keep yourself fed and housed, insured. You have to pay taxes, otherwise there are consequences. So it angered me that I didn't really know how to generate more money, and like I didn't have the confidence that what the services that I provided, even though they were high level, I didn't have the confidence that other people would see that necessarily and want to engage in commerce with me. So and also at the time I had a lot of student debt. So my perspective at that time was just like, oh my gosh, I'm never, ever, ever going to be out of debt. Like it was like, why try? So I had all these kind of beliefs that were tripping me up, because whenever I would, go and work and actually make some money, it was kind of like I felt self-defeated. I was like, well, why even try? This is like so much energy. I'm not even making headway. I'm not, I have nothing to show for it. And all of those beliefs just kept me very, very stuck. Like it was very difficult to see anything outside of that. And whenever I would, read different books about like the energy of money or things about manifestation and bringing in more money, it was kind of like it was still very amorphous. It was very out of reach. It was nebulous. Like I didn't quite grasp it. But I do have a very curious mind. And so I would, just listen to different podcasts, telesummits online. And at the time, I was listening to a lot of podcasts that had to do with energy healing, had to do with changing our belief system. Some of them had to do with like other things like astrology or other esoteric topics. And, coming from a very left brain profession, I approach these with a little bit of skepticism. I ask how much of it is true, how much of it is not, which is, it's a healthy skepticism, I think. And I was still open to, learn and to see if anything that I learned really stuck or, to something that I could, use practically. So in one of these telesummits, somebody was, in these telesummits were, like I said, they were just talking about energy healing, energy modalities, energy psychology. And so, different practitioners of modalities would come on and talk to us about their product and what their product did. And so one of these talks was on infinity healing. Now, I had already, heard different practitioners doing a process with the listeners. And sometimes I would actually feel things. Sometimes I would actually, have a better outlook on my situation, but those things like never really had staying power. And then for a while I had done a little bit of hypnosis, and that also worked a little bit, just because it's like you're reprogramming your mind, and your mind is finding like workarounds to the patterns you already work with. So anyway, infinity healing. So a guy called Tarek Bibi invented this modality, and it's kind of like a compilation of really what he learned. And he also had his own healing journey. He went through his infinity healing process, which consists of an induction, kind of like a meditative introduction, where we get relaxed and we take deep breaths. And then he started asking questions like, would you like an infinity healing to, support you in your money journey? If you do, just say yes. And then you would just follow along and you'd say yes. And then he would take you through all these different questions. Would you like an infinity healing to release whatever anger you might have towards money? If so, say yes. Would you like to have an infinity healing to replace that with what's for your highest good? If so, say yes. And so he'd have these little sample sessions with the listeners. And I remember going through it, and I was like, I have nothing to lose, so let's try it. And during this group session, and it was on delayed playback because I didn't catch the live event, I actually felt electricity going through my body. And I was like, something's happening here. What's going on? This is not something I'm imagining, because I was okay like 2 seconds ago, and I have like these little like tingling, impulses going up and down like my body, up and down my leg, and something is happening. So it was then that I just decided to look into the different healing modalities and why they work and why they don't. And I eventually I decided to have a session with him and his team. And so we did a private session, and it was like crazy, because within like the following 2 weeks I came into $10,000, like just bam, it's there. It's like in my hands, like physically. And I was just so dumbfounded, because I was just like, wow, something in this process really works. And so, I bought his programs, and, he had a lot of money programs at that time. And I said, wow. And I could feel the energy moving in each of the programs. And so I said to myself, and this is like maybe a couple years later after we've done this, I was like, if he ever offers an opportunity to teach this modality, I'd love to learn everything about what's on the back end. And in 2017, I did just that. I became a practitioner in infinity healing. And let me tell you, it's changed my life. And I can say that about very few things. I can say that about infinity healing, and I can say that about human design. Um, and that's a topic for another podcast. And so in this podcast episode, I'd like to talk to you about infinity healing, and at the end, I'll take you through a process. Yeah, it's going to be fun, and I'm really interested to know what you think. So, where did I leave off? So, yeah, I became a practitioner, and then a few years later, I became a trainer. So, I am authorized to train others in the infinity healing technique as practitioners. Let me just kind of go through the different parts of what that is. So basically, what we're doing in the process, in a session, in a recording, or what have you, is we have a spirit being, or maybe I should say, the spirit being is actually creating our body, our life here. And the spirit being, your spirit being, your multidimensional self, that part of you is connected to source, God, universe, everything. It's connected to everything and everyone. And the thing is that as we are having a human experience, a lot of that infinite part of us gets kind of filtered out. And so we're kind of just focusing. It's kind of like looking through a microscope, and you're just kind of focusing on whatever is underneath that slide. And you're not really aware of, whatever else is in the room. You're not focused on, whatever else is in the other room. You're just kind of focused on this minuscule little piece of life. And that's what our lives are. And we forget. And that's the part where I get very, I don't want to say triggered, but I kind of get frustrated, I guess is the best word, that even I always can't remember that I have access to this bigger part of me. And this bigger part of me has, so much information. It offers so many different possibilities. It offers so many solutions. And I forget, even I forget. I'm like, hey, I have this tool in my box, and I'm not using it. So infinity healing, what it is the intention to reconnect your conscious awareness with your subconscious and unconscious awarenesses, with your bigger self, with the highest self, with, source, God, universe, whatever your word for it, in order to bring about change in your belief system, and therefore in the world around you, because our thoughts and our emotions and our identity beliefs create our world. So you're basically, tapping upwards. So the process of infinity healing is initially kind of unpacking what it is, you take issue with. And the process goes through, like, let's say, like in my case, I had issues with money, and I felt, angry. I felt like I was being controlled. I felt powerless. I felt sad. So in that session, not only is my cognitive surface belief about money addressed, I'm also addressing, the anger, the powerlessness, etc., like all the feelings behind that support that belief. Yeah, and it's in that surrendering that we're saying, okay, my way just is not working for me. Whatever way I was taught during this lifetime that I'm aware of, it's just not working. We need something else. So you're tapping into that higher space to get a better outcome, a different way of thinking. So if this is something that piques your interest, well, that's great, because we're going to go through it now. But just a reminder that this isn't intended or implied to be a substitute for any kind of professional advice. I'm not, a financial expert. This is not intended to be construed as medical advice or psychological advice, diagnoses, or treatments. I don't offer medical advice over the podcast. Yeah, you guys are responsible for any issues, psychological, health, or otherwise, that come up during the session. Okay. Yeah, please consult qualified professionals for any of your 3D problems, diagnoses, or issues. Okay, so let's get started with the meditation. And this is the infinity healing technique. So, warning, please do not listen to this meditation if you're driving, operating heavy machinery, or while doing caretaking, like caretaking of a baby, or even like treating patients or anything else that needs your whole attention. Make sure you're in a safe place where you can focus on the meditation. Okay, so let's begin. So let's take a moment to get in a comfortable position with your arms and legs uncrossed. You can be sitting or lying down. Set your intention to receive the maximum benefit from this session. You can close your eyes and go ahead and take 3 deep, conscious belly breaths, and I'll take them with you. Okay, so starting now, if you would like an infinity healing, which is the connecting through your highest self, your spirit, to God, Source, Universe, the Divine, relating to money, say yes. If there's any part of you that's not able to receive the maximum during today's session, would you like an infinity healing to clear everything in the way of you being able to receive the maximum right now? If so, say yes. If there's any part of you that's not able to let go of the maximum during today's session, would you like an infinity healing to clear everything in the way of you being able to let go of the maximum right now? If so, say yes. And as soon as you release it, we're replacing it with what's for our highest good, the highest vibration our bodies can receive. And if there's any part of you that's in the way, interfering with, resisting, sabotaging, or afraid of all that's available for you today, would you like an infinity healing for your highest self to set all of that aside and to show you what's going on from the highest perspective? If so, say yes. Okay, so let's become aware of ourselves within that bigger part. You could call that the light, the source, the superconsciousness, the universe, God, divine, spirit. And visualize a beautiful liquid light pouring down from this part down to the top of your head, down into your neck and shoulders, down into your arm and chest, down into your belly and your back, down into your hips and thighs, down into your knees and calves and ankles, down into your feet. And this light is pouring all the way down through your body, in through your feet, all the way down into the ground. And you're just breathing in and out. You're allowing anything that's not necessary to just fall away. So starting now, would you like an infinity healing relating to or downloading what money means for you in the highest and best ways? If so, say yes. Would you like an infinity healing for knowing, feeling, and being a person who has money? If so, say yes. Would you like an infinity healing for being wealthy? If so, say yes. Would you like an infinity healing for being someone who identifies as being wealthy? If so, say yes. Would you like an infinity healing for recognizing yourself as being wealthy? If so, say yes. Would you like an infinity healing for knowing, feeling, and being allowed to have money and wealth? If so, say yes. Would you like an infinity healing for being permitted to have money and being permitted to be wealthy? If so, say yes. Would you like an infinity healing for permitting yourself, allowing yourself to be wealthy? If so, say yes. Would you like an infinity healing for being encouraged to be wealthy? If so, say yes. Would you like an infinity healing for knowing and feeling it's safe to be wealthy and have money? If so, say yes. Would you like an infinity healing for knowing and feeling that it is possible to be wealthy? If so, say yes. Would you like an infinity healing for knowing and feeling you are worthy of money, you are worthy of wealth, you are deserving of money, you are deserving of wealth? If so, say yes. Would you like an infinity healing for knowing and feeling you can have money and wealth in the highest and best ways with harm to none? If so, say yes. And would you like an infinity healing for clearing any blocks, fears, negative emotions that stop us from experiencing the fullness of our wealth and our increase in money? If so, say yes. Okay. To conclude, please, God, Source, Universe, Superconsciousness, Divine Spirit, deepen these healings, take them to their infinite next levels, share them with all aspects of ourselves, our children, grandchildren, inner child, parents, ancestors, past lives, parallel lives, simultaneous existences, all space, time, and dimensions. Include in this healing more than what we know to ask for, that this or something greater will happen. Setting these healings on autopilot with infinite ease and grace. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and so it is. Okay. And when you're ready, you can come out, you can open your eyes. So, as we conclude this little infinity healing session, I'd love to know how you felt during the session, if you felt any energy move, if you had a revelation or epiphany during the session, if something else was brought up. I'd love to know what happened. Everybody's super different. Sometimes I get testimonials about what happens during the session or even like a couple days after the session. And even something as small as I was balancing my checkbook or I was doing my banking online, and for the first time, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel sad. Like, those are huge, huge shifts. Yeah, so this was a nice little example of what an infinity healing session is. And my goal and mission is to help others shift their inner experience with things like money, wealth, relationships, confidence, all of these different challenges we run through in our lifetime. My goal is to help people with the tools they need to really see their lives as, having more possibilities than they have at the present moment. So you can email me at infinitelevelhealings@gmail.com. My website is infinitelevelhealings.com, and you can find out how to get a private session with me so we can go even deeper in facilitating a life you desire. So there will be links in the description. And thank you again for joining me on today's podcast. I'll see you next time.